back with Sophia, or Panda as I like to call her.
AKA Panda.
Sofu Panda as well. I just keep coming up with names. Okay, so we went on a long tangent, but it was still interesting nonetheless to explore and understand the mechanics and the dynamics behind why we do what we do and what motivates us behind our decisions.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to ask you next is, what brought you about to doing the sessions? What made you decide to do them from, seeing this strange black guy all in black, from looking at our posts in Toronto. I mean, we're in Bali, which is a pretty cool exotic place to go to and check out.
Well, I was planning on traveling Southeast Asia, but Bali was going to be my first stop specifically to do the sessions. Had some spinach in my teeth.
Yes, I can see it.
Oh, is it still there?
Yes.
Can you get it out, please?
Yes. Looks like you ate a bug or something.
Not good?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, good. Don't want that on camera.
It's not going to show up on camera.
Yes, it will.
Yeah. So you wanted to do, what brought you about doing sessions? Or made you decide to do them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I said in the video that had cut out originally, I had been dealing with depression for years, probably for most of my life. I think I sort of only recognized it was depression when I was probably an early teen, 14 or 15. And as I had mentioned earlier, I was a part of the New Age community, and there were all of these sort of things that we were told to do that would help us with that, like meditation, affirmations, and this kind of thing. Reiki, different kinds of energy healing of sorts, and nothing really ever helped me. It would sort of give me a band-aid effect.
Yeah.
So momentarily I might feel okay or get a bit of almost a high because they really play on this idea that you're important and you're very sensitive, and that's why you're experiencing all these things. And I am sensitive.
It's like a drug.
But they played on it.
Yeah.
This idea of being important. So I think that there was a part of me that felt that I needed to suffer. As I was reading Diego's post, I just thought it was really, really interesting what he was saying. And beyond that, it made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense. So when I realized that you guys were offering sessions, I think it was a very new thing. I think only maybe one or two other people had done it prior to me. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. So I needed some assistance with my depression. I mean, I was stuck in a loop with my addictions, which are addiction to marijuana as well as addiction to consensus. I had tremendous fears that were ruling my life, surrounding rejection, abandonment, not being good enough, as so many people feel, constantly comparing myself to others, and I was just a mess. I mean, nothing was helping me, so I was, I guess, willing to just give it a shot. I mean, I had tried almost everything else.
Okay.
So I guess that's what sort of really brought me there. And Diego was unique in the way that he talked about things, but also when you actually have a session with him, there's a sort of sincerity. There's just such a lack of facade, but also he sort of lets you take the floor, and you kind of just go off, and then he stops you and he asks you questions, but not like they would do in a typical counseling session. It's super, super deep, and it sort of goes beyond most of the surface layers that most people are able to do.
I know. I mean, I sit in every single one of the sessions and I participate in them as well, and I've been trying to learn what Diego does in sessions, and I'm still not able to do it. It blows me away every time. That's good. So what did you find the differences between what you have experienced with EOF and with other self-help? You said that it goes much deeper, asking questions.
Yeah, I would say
I
think the biggest thing is that a lot of counselors, as well as sort of new age gurus, try to give you tools that make you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about making you feel better. And not just making you feel better in the long run. It's not really about the long run necessarily, even though they promote it like it is.
It's like McDonald's, it's
yeah,
quick.
it's about right now.
Yeah.
You know, so it gives you sort of a quick fix, but it's not a real fix. It's a facade of a fix. And it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
It reminds you, it makes you think again that you are important, that you have a very special purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, really plays on giving you tools such as affirmations to essentially continue your patterns of denial.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas EOF is nothing like that. It recognizes what your denial is right away. You and Diego.
That's our job to figure that out in the questionnaire and things like that.
Yeah. So you get called out on it right away. And there are your typical surface go-to answers that you've probably answered to other gurus or counselors and that kind of thing. But we generally tend to look at the bigger picture, so the themes of things that aren't just personal to my story, but are sort of part of human conditioning.
Yes.
And when we start dismantling things from the bigger picture, it does a couple things. First of all, it makes you understand that A, you're not the only one that does this, but also that so much of our problems are actually conditioning.
Yes.
You know, and I guess you could say that you've heard that kind of thing before, but I guess with EOF it just goes so deep, and it also requires more than anything, I think this is the big thing, that you take responsibility. And again, a lot of the new age gurus or some of the counselors out there, and I don't really know too many counselors because I haven't been to much counseling, so I don't want to speak on that.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about taking responsibility, but they talk about it in a really superficial way. Like what it is that you want to do with your life. What do you want to do with your life? And they make
what do you love? How can you be
what is your passion?
How can we build your self-esteem?
Yeah, and it's all about self-esteem, and it's all about pride and sort of building yourself up. Success in a very existential way. But it doesn't really get to the root of what's disturbing you and why it's disturbing you.
When you said that it approaches things differently, what impressed me about when Diego talked about depression, for example, it wasn't about, well, let's get rid of this kind of a thing, but actually to be depressed means that you're still alive in a world that is constantly trying to be fake, and it's really difficult to be happy in this time, and maybe it's not necessarily healthy as well.
Just sort of triggered that. So I think what Diego's getting at right there is, I mean, we're not promoting depression. Don't get that wrong.
No.
That's not what it's about. But it's quite likely that if you're a sort of fairly intelligent and sensitive person, you are going to experience in certain parts of your life, if not throughout your life, in fluxes, depression. And this is what I was getting to. The difference between EOF and the majority of self-help programs or things that claim they're gonna assist you in some way with clarity is that we really focus on the relationship to things.
Yes.
And this is the hugest thing. So depression is quite common, and it doesn't necessarily have to be disabling, but it's our relationship to it. It is an issue if you are waking up and not able to get out of bed, which I've been there many, many times.
Most people are traumatized by the depression, you know.
Or you're waking up and you're smoking a joint or going to the bottle of booze. I'm a pothead, so that's what I do.
Not me.
I know. But my point is that we tend to isolate things like depression or abandonment or the idea of rejection or anxiety and all of these kinds of things, or stress.
Yeah.
And the truth is we all experience these things in different amounts.
Yeah.
However, that is not the actual issue. It's bound to happen if you're a human living in this world.
Sure.
The issue is that we don't really understand our relationship to it.
Sure, and also the relationship to the ideas that we have of things, ideas we have about ourselves, ideas we have about other people, ideas we have about our relationships.
Yeah. Which is probably the biggest one for most people, and probably one of the most problematic, I think, for people is how skewed our ideas are of relationship based on society's conditioning, what we've been taught in our home, in our culture, or in our family life. And then, of course, there's movies in Hollywood that play into it. And then there are our own personal stories. So you have one particular relationship, and he checked off these boxes, or she checked off these boxes. But, in the Sean Connery voice, but they weren't checking off all of the boxes. So you go into your next relationship, and again, the same thing happens. Oh, well, he's got all these things, but not these. And they teach you in a lot of sort of, like, I don't know if it's like the law of attraction. I'm not saying that that's what they teach you, but these kinds of books to make a list of all the things that you want.
And manifest it.
Magic. But the problem is a lot of the things that you want, A, you've been conditioned to think that you want, and B, they're not realistic. They're not what the foundation of a relationship is built on in the first place. If you're getting involved in a relationship where you're going for a guy just for money or just for romance, that's not going to last very long, for either of you. And you might live for the rest of your life with that person, but I can guarantee you're going to be hella depressed. So, sorry, I don't know if I went a little off topic there, but...
That's fine. I think that's important to say, and that does show how we are very different from other self-helps, because they don't really talk about that or go into that. How much we really deceive ourselves, self-deception, how we manipulate ourselves, how we think we feel something, but there's no real... look into it if it actually is what we think it is. So many assumptions are creating the unnecessary problems for us.
And again, I think there's sort of so many attachments to specific ideas. Like in the Western world, we're quite obsessed with beauty. And I have my own insecurities. I totally get it. And you and I and Diego have had many conversations about this. And what I meant by getting to the root of things and going beyond the surface is, it would be easy to say, okay, well, you're insecure, so let's build you up. Let's give you some self-esteem and some confidence and get you out there. But you're a beautiful girl, and put yourself on a dating site and see how many people, and of course, you're gonna get that consensus. But the point is when with EOF we go so deep, we look into things in a completely different way. So if you're so caught up, let's say, for example, about your looks, is it really about your looks? Diego always gives a good example. If you were on an island, would you care about how you looked? Would you care about, being, super pretty or whatever? No, you wouldn't. The truth is, a lot of what's behind this, and it varies for different people, is the fear of rejection or the addiction or obsession to attention. So it's so many various things. It's not just about building yourself up and feeling confident. It's about looking at why these things are so important to us and looking at if they're actually important to us. Is this just our conditioning? And what is our relationship to those particular things so we can have a better understanding of ourselves and hopefully grow?
That's really well said.
Consensus.
That was horrible! Try harder next time!